Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, lived a princess so lovely, she was named Snow White. Her skin was as pure as fresh fallen snow, her lips the color of the deepest red roses, and her hair as dark as a moonless night. But more than her beauty, it was her heart that truly shone. She was kind and gentle, with a sweetness that charmed every person and creature she met. Everyone in the kingdom adored her. Well, almost everyone. The Queen, Snow White's stepmother, was a woman of great beauty, but her heart was cold and filled with jealousy. Every single day, she would stand before her enchanted mirror and ask the same question. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" For years, the mirror always gave the answer she longed to hear. "You, my queen, are the fairest of all." This pleased her to no end. But as Snow White blossomed, a day came when the mirror's answer changed. The queen asked her daily question, but this time the mirror replied, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." A wave of shock, then rage, washed over the queen. "No, it cannot be true," she shrieked. Consumed by envy, she knew she had to get rid of the young princess. She summoned her most trusted huntsman with a dark command. "Take Snow White deep into the forest," she ordered, her voice like ice, "and never bring her back." But the huntsman's heart was not as cold as the queen's. When he was alone with the princess in the woods, he couldn't bring himself to harm her. "Run away, Snow White," he urged, his voice filled with pity. "Run far, far away and never return to the castle." Terrified and alone, Snow White ran. She ran deeper and deeper into the dark, tangled forest, tears streaming down her face. She stumbled through the unfamiliar woods until she could run no more. Just as she was about to give up hope, she noticed she wasn't entirely alone. A flutter of wings, a twitch of a nose, the gentle eyes of a deer. The animals of the forest, sensing her kindness, gathered around her. They weren't afraid, and soon neither was she. As if they understood her plight, the friendly creatures led her through the trees to a clearing. There, nestled amongst the flowers, was a tiny, charming cottage. It looked like something out of a storybook. Snow White cautiously knocked on the little wooden door. When no one answered, she gently pushed it open and peeked inside. What she saw was the most curious sight. Everything was miniature. There were 7 tiny chairs around a small wooden table, 7 little plates and cups, and upstairs, 7 tiny beds all in a row. The house was a bit messy, so Snow White, with her good heart, decided to tidy up. She swept the floors, washed the dishes, and even cooked a warm, delicious soup. Exhausted from her long day, she found the little beds, curled up across a few of them, and instantly fell fast asleep. As dusk settled over the forest, the owners of the cottage returned home. It was the 7 dwarfs, their pickaxes over their shoulders, singing a cheerful tune after a long day's work in the jewel mines. Imagine their surprise when they walked in to find their home sparkling clean, a wonderful smell coming from the kitchen, and a beautiful young woman sleeping in their beds. "Who is she?" they whispered amongst themselves, gathering round her. "She's so beautiful," said one. "She looks so kind," added another. Just then, Snow White's eyes fluttered open. Seeing the 7 curious faces staring down at her, she sat up and smiled. "Oh, hello. My name is Snow White," she explained, telling them her sad story. "Please, may I stay here with you? I can cook and clean and sew for you." The dwarfs looked at each other, their hearts melting. "Yes, of course, you can stay." They all cheered. And so Snow White found a new home filled with laughter, music, and friendship. She cooked wonderful meals, kept the cottage spotless, and sang songs that made the whole forest seem brighter. The dwarfs absolutely adored her. Each morning, as the dwarfs prepared to leave for the mines, they would give Snow White a word of caution. "Be very careful, Snow White," their leader Doc would say. "The wicked queen is dangerous. Don't let anyone into the house." Snow White always promised she would be safe. She'd wave goodbye from the doorway, her heart full of gratitude, and then begin her day, often singing to her little animal friends. But far away in the castle, the evil queen was not finished. Confident that Snow White was gone, she approached her mirror once more. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror's voice echoed through the cold chamber, over the 7 jeweled hills, beyond the 7th fall, in the cottage of the 7 dwarfs. Snow White is fairest of them all. The queen let out a scream of pure fury. She had been tricked. "If you want something done right," she hissed to herself, "you have to do it yourself." Her mind twisted with hatred, she devised a truly wicked plan. Using dark magic, she disguised herself as a stooped old peddler woman, her face hidden by a dark shawl. In her basket, she placed a single perfect apple. It was a beautiful, shiny red on one side, but that side was laced with a powerful sleeping poison. She traveled through the woods until she found the dwarf's cottage. "Hello, dearie," she croaked, knocking on the window where Snow White was baking, "just selling some lovely apples. Wouldn't you like to try a bite of this delicious wishing apple?" Remembering the dwarf's warning, Snow White was hesitant. But the old woman seemed harmless, and the apple looked so tempting. "It's a gift, my pretty," the queen cooed, holding it out. "Thank you, kind lady," Snow White said, taking the apple. She took one small bite. Instantly, the poison took hold, and she fell to the floor in a deep, death-like sleep. The queen threw back her head and laughed, a terrible, triumphant sound. "Now I am the fairest of them all," she cackled before disappearing back into the shadows. When the 7 dwarfs returned home that evening, their cheerful song died on their lips. They found Snow White lying still and silent on the floor. "Snow White, wake up," they cried, their hearts breaking. "Please wake up." But she didn't move. They couldn't bear to bury her beautiful form in the cold ground, so they crafted a coffin of glass and gold and placed her in it, setting it in a sunlit clearing in the forest. Day and night, they, along with all the forest animals, kept a sad vigil. A long time passed. One day, a handsome prince from a neighboring kingdom was riding through the forest. He stumbled upon the clearing and saw the incredible sight of a beautiful princess sleeping in a glass bed, surrounded by grieving dwarfs. He was captivated by her serene beauty. "She is the most beautiful maiden I have ever seen," he said softly. Leaning over, he gently placed a kiss on her lips. In that instant, the wicked spell was broken. The piece of poisoned apple was dislodged, and Snow White's eyes slowly opened. She sat up and smiled, first at the dwarfs, then at the handsome prince looking down at her. The dwarfs shouted with joy, dancing and cheering. Snow White was alive. The prince, overjoyed, asked, "Come with me to my castle and be my wife, Snow White." With a heart full of happiness, she said, "Yes, I will." They returned to his kingdom and had a grand wedding, and everyone in the land celebrated. The dwarfs danced, the birds sang, and Snow White, safe and loved, had finally found her true happiness. As for the wicked queen, she was never seen or heard from again. And so, the story of the kind, brave princess reminds us all that true love and goodness will always triumph in the end. They all lived happily ever after. Thank you so much for watching with me today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next adventure.